everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS core plays for this week's FedEx St. Jude Championship. We're headed into the playoffs, that time of year where we always get the gifts of playoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
But anyways, my favorite time of the year, all the golf means a whole lot more. You have plenty on the line in terms of tour cards, status for next year, but more importantly, that $15 million purse at the end doesn't hurt anyone either. So really looking forward to this week, and in this video specifically, going to cover everything you need to know for DraftKings fantasy purposes in terms of my top plays priced $8,000 and above. So our spend up options, they're in that 10, 9, and 8K range, and I'll be getting to in plenty of my lineups and using as quote unquote foundational or core pieces of my player pool. Before we hop into it though, just a quick look back at the Wyndham Championship, which was one of the better weeks I've had for the DFS side, also the betting perspective, for quite some time. We had a GPP lineup that was in contention for quite a while in the $5 GPP, that 80,000 entry contest. We were in third for at least an hour or two. So early morning, Alex Smalley absolutely went off for me. David Lipsky was -5 through 9 holes. JT Poston had a bogey-free round. And then up top, we had Joohyung Kim in that lineup, also Sungjae Im, who was one of our core picks, and also who was the last one, we had Davis Riley too, somebody who I used as a sleeper pick in 40% of my lineup. So overall, I had 50% Joohyung Kim as well, no outright tickets, so I wish I had him there, but really can't complain on prize picks. We also absolutely cashed out over the weekend, so really liking our momentum right now, and we couldn't be getting hot at a better time. Heading into the playoffs, high stakes events, which are going to have the best fields of the entire year. We really can't ask for any more heading into this time of the year. So I'm really looking forward to it, really hoping to ride this heater. Let's go ahead and hop into the picks for this week. All right, got our projections on the screen, and gonna go ahead and start this off with just a review of the key stats, the types of analytics I'm looking at to try to identify my top plays of the week. So heading over to the key stats tab, you'll see that at the top, we've got shots gained approach, which is typically the most important stat week to week in my modeling, but particularly this week where TPC Southwind is the #1 correlated course on tour when it comes to correlation between success and your shots gained approach coming in. This is a track that features extremely small greens, right around 4,300 square foot, and as a result, hitting those targets going to be a lot harder. In fact, the GIR percentage is a lot lower around Southwind than it is around most tracks on the PGA Tour. On top of that, you're also dealing with really rough around the green shots, bunkers on 75 on property that are also extremely penal, and rough around the green that when you get that Bermuda grass that's 2.5, 3 inches long, also really complicates things. So in general, you're looking at a golf course that really rewards the ball strikers, and that's why over the years, you've seen plenty of the best approach players on tour have success around this venue. Just think about last year. Abraham Answer was absolutely striping his irons this time of year. You had Justin Thomas win this, Dustin Johnson, A. Brooks Koepka. Just the further and further you look back, all of the champions here are among the best on the PGA Tour, not just going into that week in terms of their iron play. So that's no surprise to see that at #1, but you also, with those small greens, are going to be dealing with a lot of 10 to 15 footers. So when you put yourself in position, cashing in on these Bermuda greens is going to be something you have to do. So that's why it's there at #2. Around the green is especially difficult around this track. So around the green is also a lot more important around this track than it is week to week on tour. In fact, at #3, this is by far the most I weigh it at any golf course around the PGA Tour. So definitely take that with a grain of salt. It is a lot more important here than most tracks. Just a few other notables. Driving accuracy is going to be important at a golf course with plenty of water. I'm looking at shots gained on fast greens. Now, during my course breakdown, I talked about it being in a drought, and while that was the case up until this week, they have gotten a little bit of rain in the area over the last few days, and more importantly, on Wednesday and Thursday, they are calling for a high percentage chance of thunderstorms. So I'm a little bit less worried about the fast greens, but it's still something I'm including as of right now. If we get that weather, might be something that I tone back a little bit. Don't look into quite as much, but shots gained on par 70s, sand saves with those 75 bunkers, shots gained in firm and fast conditions, kind of going along with the shots gained on the fast greens, and also looking at comp courses and course history. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of the modeling. Definitely an approach heavy golf course. And then you got to look at around the green and putting, maybe a little bit more than usual. The one casualty then has to be off the tee play, and it makes sense. It's a par 70. You have all this water in play. Really, a lot of the advantage you get for being a bomber, hitting it out there 320 yards, 330 yards, gets mitigated when a lot of those players are bringing in more variance off the tee in terms of penalty shots. So this is one of those golf courses where those other three key stats definitely are what you want to hone down on, and you'll definitely see that reflected when it comes to the player pool. So first and foremost, going to start at the top of the board, where our first core pick we're going to focus on here is going to be Scotty Sheffler at $10,800. So towards the top, not the most expensive at this point. That is now reserved for Rory McIlroy, and realistically, Scotty Sheffler might be the best iron player in the world. In terms of consistency, I certainly think he's your guy. He's going to go out there, hit 15, 16 greens in regulation, pretty much round in and round out. And around TPC Southwind, that is how you win this golf tournament. Like I mentioned, a lot of the around the green shots are going to be penalized heavily, but the really good thing about Scotty Sheffler, and the reason why he's frankly the #1 player in the world, is that even when he puts himself out of position, he's got a world-class around the green play. And when you put him on Bermuda greens, he's also been his best self. He's gaining close to 2/3 of a stroke per round on Bermuda greens. So realistically, no matter what you look at with the Scotty Sheffler, he's going to be checking that box emphatically, and you'd expect him to be getting all the steam this week. Everybody to be, oh, we got to hop on the Scotty Sheffler train. He's #1 in the world. You'd expect him to be the betting favorite around this event, and he is none of those things. So I know it's early. This is DFS, so obviously ownership is going to have a lot to do with these plays up top, but I have a sneaking suspicion, and this has been the case for the last few months, that Sheffler goes under-owned, that he gets a little bit overlooked. I don't know if people aren't sold on him at this point, but realistically, you should have no hesitation about this guy's game. He has proven more than enough to me and more than enough to pretty much the entire golf community that he is at least one of the top 3 players in the world, if not the very best player in the world when it comes to almost every single category. I mean, off the tee, an absolute raker, maybe the best approach player on tour, and we've seen that world-class around the green play and putting heat up and arguably be the best in fields. I mean, at Augusta National, there was no better around the green player. With a lot of those wins, especially down the API, there was no better putter in that field. He can realistically be the best player at any one category in any field, regardless of the strength. It could be a major championship, a players championship type field. He is that good. So realistically, I'm going to be taking the world #1 here, so it shouldn't be a surprise, but I don't think people are giving him that respect. And at a golf course where approach play is going to be king, really, there should be no hesitations in getting to him as a play. Next up, we've got Cam Smith, who, if off the tee play is going to be a little bit less important, you shouldn't have any hesitations about Cam Smith either, right? Because from fairway in, there is no better player. This year, he's been one of the top 3 players in terms of shots gained approach per round. Around the green play, we know him as at least a top 3 player in that category. We know Scotty's up there, Jordan Spieth, and probably Cam Smith is #3 or at least #2 there. The putting numbers on Bermuda grass are unmatched. The only player with the higher shots gained putting per round on Bermuda is Ju Young Kim, and that's because he has a 4-round sample size and gained 12 strokes last week. So for anybody that has over 50 measured rounds, and for Cam Smith, it's over 100 measured rounds at this point, he's getting 1.4 strokes per round. And then when we look at the rest of the metrics here, is really where we start to get excited, because off the tee, like I mentioned, is by far his weakest point of his game. And it's not like he's not long, it's just not all that accurate off the tee. But with the ability to lay back at least a little bit off the tee this week, I'd expect him to hit a few more fairways. But like I mentioned, from fairway in, you're not going to find a better player. He's gaining close to 2/3 of a stroke per round on approach. Around the green is always going to be a plus for him, if not something that's really carrying him from time to time. He's liable to chip in 2 to 3 times during an event. And then with the putter, he's been doing his thing. And that has been on bent grass and also a bent POA surface over the last few months. Obviously at St. Andrews, it was that bent POA mix. And realistically, though, at least per the analytics, is not one of his favorite surfaces. In fact, he tends to struggle on bent POA from time to time. And now that we're getting him back on his bread and butter, he lives up there in Ponte Vedra Beach, is putting on extremely grainy surfaces at TPC Sawgrass all the time and in plenty of the other courses in the area. Just fire him up, right? He's easily projected in the top 5 in terms of projected points. And much like a Scotty Sheffler, people get bored of playing guys. He'll go out there, he'll win a major championship, and then the next time out, because he's a little bit more expensive, he's $10,500 now, he might not be 30% owned. And realistically, based on course fit, based on recent form coming in off the major championship victory, Cam Smith should be one of the highest owned players on the slate. And realistically, I think he might be there at like number 3, number 4 when it comes to ownership. Again, it's really early to be trying to make these projections here on a Monday morning, but at least based on the sentiment around the industry, I think he might be at least a little bit lower owned than he should be. Same thing with Scotty Sheffler, right? It's not like they're going to be single digit owned or even close to like 12 to 13%. They will be well above that in terms of their exposure. I just think it should be higher than that. They are head and shoulders, at least in my opinion, the best plays in this 10K range. I mean, Rory McIlroy is going to get a lot of attention after his heartbreak there on Sunday. People love playing Rory McIlroy. Somebody like Xander has been on an absolute heater, so I think he deservingly is getting attention. But, from a long-term sample size, right, Scotty Sheffler, world number 1, should be getting a ton of attention. Cameron Smith, Players Championship, 3 wins this season, is coming in off a major championship victory. You'd expect these guys to be the talk of the town, and at least at this point, it seems like a lot of the guys up top are getting even consideration from the field. It seems like ownership is going to be relatively flat, so I will certainly be planting my flag in both of the spots here. One thing I'd like to mention here real quickly is if you want access to all of my modeling, all the projections I have to offer, whether somebody is in my player pool, projected ownership throughout the week, then the best place to check it out is on my Patreon page. There is a link down below in this video. It is $10 a month. You get access to my Draftkings projections, all of the research spreadsheets that I'm putting together for y'all down there, access to the community Discord, which is a lot of fun, a lot of bright-minded people down there, and all of my prize picks content, which includes hit rate spreadsheets, obviously my picks for all 4 rounds, and overall, you're not going to find a better deal around the industry. So quick plug aside, I think it's a great deal that you want to check out. And if you're looking for access to everything I'm offering, right, not just what I'm putting out here in these quick free videos for you on YouTube, that is exactly how you can get that access. Something I also wanted to note both about Scotty Sheffler and Cam Smith is they also have a really good track record around TPC Southwind. So if we take a look at that tab, you'll see first and foremost, Scotty Sheffler has made the cut in all 3 trips, has had a top 15 finish in his last 2 trips here in 2020 and 2021. And for Cam Smith, a top 5 last year, a made cut in 2020, and a 12th place finish in 2019. So you're talking about guys that are coming in form, are great course fits, love Bermuda grass, and have shown us in the past an ability to go out there and spike around this track. Sign me up, fire them up in plenty of lineups, going to be foundational pieces that I'm using. But next up, we've got Justin Thomas, a past winner at this event, so obviously checks that box. We know he's going to be a great course fit, but on top of that, from the approach play perspective, he's up there in the top 5 too, right? We know Scotty Sheffler, JT, probably Colin Morikawa's up there in terms of his approach play. Those 3 are always going to be top 5 approach players, and the stats have certainly backed that up. So if we take a look at the stats over here, you see he's gaining over half a stroke per round both off the tee and on approach, which you'd expect for a world-class player like a JT, but also gaining around the green, and most importantly, gaining with the flat stick. This is what's taken JT to the next level, because after that Players Championship win there in 2021, he really fell off a cliff. He was competing, but he wasn't really getting into contention there on Saturday and Sunday. He was backdooring some top 10, top 15 finishes. But when he figured out the flat stick, and oh boy, it took him a long time to figure it out, it has completely unlocked his game. And historically, and it hasn't really looked this way of late, because a lot of the stats we're looking at in terms of these Bermuda numbers are coming from the season where he really struggled there in the fall and also the early spring season with his putting. But since then, has lit it up. But historically, on Bermuda, it has been his best surface. When you look over a career sample size, he actually gains on Bermuda. On every other surface, he is a clear loser. So you're looking at somebody like JT, who he likes himself some Bermuda greens, which also tends to make a lot of sense. He's from South Florida, is putting on Jupiter on Bermuda greens every single day. why not fire him up here, right? From tee to green, we know what to expect. World-class play. And if he's going to go out there, be a little bit more comfortable on the greens, is already coming in, gaining strokes with the flat stick. I mean, I think his floor here legitimately is like a top 10, top 15 finish. And then if he can go out there and gain just a stroke or two to the field with the putter, watch out, book it. He's winning this event. So at $10,200, he's the third guy above 10 grand that I really see myself getting to. And the one common denominator here is the approach play. They're all world class in that category and all historically are their best self on Bermuda. Now, Justin Thomas, clearly the worst putter out of the bunch. That's also why he's a little bit cheaper, but we also know he is by far the most upside when it comes to the approach play. I mean, JT, when he's dialed in, is among the best on the PGA Tour. In fact, I don't think anybody's even close to as dialed in as JT when he's firing on all 8 cylinders in that engine. But on top of that, in those mid-iron ranges, that 125 to 150 range, that 150 to 175, and also that 175 to 200 yard range, he's top 10 on the PGA Tour in every single category. So you're looking at somebody that is just fitting this golf course like a glove, is coming in with form, and then, my favorite thing of all, has the putting splits that we're looking for. Go ahead and fire him up. I expect this to be a really solid spot to get to JT. And now moving into the 9K range, so a little bit cheaper, quite a step down in terms of salary. At $9,500, yet again, another world-class approach player. You're really going to get bored about hearing about this. Obviously, approach play is the most consistent stat from week to week, so it's something I'm harping on from week to week, but this is the number one correlated stat. For the most consistent stat on the PGA Tour, we would be beside ourselves not to focus on it. And Willie Z, if there's one thing we can count on him doing, much like a Justin Thomas, it's gain from tee to green. And of late, that is exactly what we've gotten. You can see he's gaining 2/3 of a stroke per round off the tee, close to 3/4 of a stroke per round on approach. And with the short game stats, just a marginal gainer, right? Which for Willie Z, we can realistically have him losing a little bit around the green, probably even just be a neutral putter and go out there and finish in the top 10. Now, when he goes out there and he's able to gain to the field, that's when Willie Z unlocks that top end upside. And the real key difference here is you can see on Bermuda, he gains to the field. He gains 0.12 strokes per round. On every other surface, just like a Justin Thomas, loses for his career. So you're looking at somebody who's coming to a golf course you'd expect him to have a lot of familiarity on, and obviously is dealing with a caddy change. So before you go ahead and comment down below, but Willie Z's got a new caddy. Well, did you see how he played over the weekend with his new caddy? Oh yeah, got into contention, right? So if you're going to worry about that narrative, I mean, he went out there, was able to perform with somebody who's not even a professional caddy, not even somebody he was used to playing with. Now next week is getting somebody who's going to be a lot more skilled at that profession, somebody who was a caddy week to week. If anything, I would expect some improvement. And obviously, when you saw that change after he fired the caddy, maybe there was some bad juju there. Maybe there was some bad blood between the two that was holding him back. Obviously, Will Zalatoris thought it was holding him back. That's why he moved on from that person. I really think this is a great spot for Willie Z to grab that first win. An approach-heavy golf course, one that's Bermuda, which directly plays into his skill set. But most importantly, all of the misses here are penalized to the max. Like I mentioned, you have that rough around the green, which can be extremely tricky with the Bermuda, a bunch of sand bunkers. Willie Z just doesn't miss very often. That's why you like playing him at difficult tee to green type of golf courses, because he doesn't put himself in a bad position very often at all. So I really like his floor here, but if he can go out there, channel into some of that Bermuda grass success that he's shown over his career, I really think he has a lot of upside in this spot. All right, next up, we've got ourselves Sam Burns at $8,600. And yet again, another absolute stud when it comes to the ball striking, most specifically with the approach play. And on top of that, another Bermuda grass specialist where he's gaining close to 2/3 of a stroke per round on these greens. So first off, let's take a look at the approach play stats, which over the last 24 measured rounds, he's gaining close to 3/4 of a stroke per round. The putter has been even hotter of late, where he's gaining over a stroke per round on the greens. A couple categories where it's a little bit worrisome. So first and foremost, off the tee, he's actually losing over that sample size, which we pretty much never see from a Sam Burns. And then around the green, maybe a little bit more typical for Sam Burns, he is losing to the field. And while around the green play is certainly something I wish most players would have this week, when we're in a GPP type of format, like we are here with DFS, going after a large field contest with 20,000, 100,000 other entries, we don't really want Sam Burns worrying all that much about the around the green play, right? We want him to go out there and actually win the event. And when we take a look at some of my comp courses, my number one comp was the Valspar Championship, a course where tee to green play is absolute paramount, and another Bermuda grass course where the greens run like absolute lightning. So really a lot of parallels that can be made between the two golf courses, but most specifically, around the green play matters at the Valspar Championship, but yet Sam Burns is back-to-back champion at that event despite being one of the worst players on tour when it comes to shots gained around the green. Why is he able to get the job done there? Oh, that's right, because his ball striking is so good, he hardly ever even has to worry about around the green play. So for guys like a Sam Burns, a Victor Hovland this week, who we're not talking about Victor right now, but really all of this applies to Victor too, might not have to worry about that. And if they are worrying about the around the green play, they're probably not putting up a ceiling performance anyways. So realistically, for somebody with just explosive firepower like Sam Burns has, I'm willing to look past the around the green play. If you're talking about somebody who's maybe a little bit less aggressive, and I think a perfect example of this, let's see, somebody who's not so good around the green, maybe not as aggressive, might be a Corey Connors, for example, who I don't hate this week. He's down here in the 7K range, but if Corey Connors was up here in the 8K range, going to be a little bit more chalky like a Sam Burns, I might not be as willing to get there, right? Because the putting stats, right, are the difference between the two players. You're talking about very similar ball strikers, also not all that good around the green. The issue is that Sam Burns can make up for it with the flat stick. He can get nuclear hot in that category, go out there, gain 6-7 strokes to the field on the greens realistically over an event, and even if he loses 1 or 2 strokes to the field, can win like you've seen at the Valspar Championship. On the flip side though, Corey Connors, right, not the best around the green player, he's going to gain something at a max like 3 or 4 strokes to the field on the greens. Just doesn't have nearly as much upside. So for somebody like Sam Burns, I'm willing to look past the around the green stats just a little bit more than most players, especially when we consider that off the tee, it's usually one of his strengths. He's one of the best players off the tee on the tour, can get it out there a long way, but more than anything is also relatively accurate off the tee, particularly when you give him a club less than driver there, is going to hit the fairway more than most. So I love Sam Burns this week. The ball striking is really giving me the everything I'm looking for. The approach stats are there. The putting on Bermuda has always been a strong suit for him. I think it's just another track to go ahead and fire him up at, just like we did at the Valspar for both of the wins over the last 2 years. And now lastly, the last core pick here at $8,200, so towards the bottom of the range. Again, these are $8,000 and above. Going to be Billy Horschel, and realistically didn't have the best week last week. Went out there, lost on approach, but was able to gain off the tee, around the green, and with the putter. But more than anything, right, he has the win at the Memorial, which you've seen of late. He's coming in with some really solid form, gaining across all 4 stat categories, but most of all, a great course fit. Anytime you put a bunch of water on a golf course, it really just screams Billy Horschel to me, because more than anything, what he really does well, what he separates himself from the field from doing, is playing smart golf. He'll play away from water hazards. You're not going to see him really play too aggressively all that often. And when there's a troublesome hole location, right, when you're dealing with water in play for sure, even if you try to be a little bit conservative about it, he's not going to make that mistake. Now, I'm sure, right, just because I said that, he's going to go out there and hit like 5 water balls this week, but there's a reason why at the Players Championship, he has a lot of success. I play him at Honda Classic down there at PGA National quite often, because he has this same type of mentality where he won't take on pins that he doesn't have to. And for a DFS format, right, we're looking for top end upside. That could seem to limit you a little bit, but the winning score here is only going to be like 13 to 15 under par. You're not going to see like 20 to 25 under par win this. So for somebody like a Billy Ho, that type of strategy is extra viable. Now, we were at the 3M Open, where a winning score is still going to get close to 20 under par. You have to be a little bit more aggressive around that track. I might not be as excited about a Billy Ho as I am this week, but given just how difficult the around the green play is, we know he's more than capable enough to take it down in that category. We know he's accurate enough off the tee to make sure to keep himself out of trouble. And if there's one surface that you just play Billy Ho on, it's Bermuda. It's Bermuda grass Billy Ho. We call him that for a reason. He gains over a half a stroke per round for his career on Bermuda grass, let alone what we've seen over the last few months, which has just been absolutely stellar play here in the 2021-2022 season on Bermuda. So somebody I'm getting to in bunches. He's $8,200. I think it's more than affordable enough. And across the board, he's number 30 in terms of my model ranking. So very consistent in that department, consistent in terms of the shots gained metrics and the course history here. We have seen him play at this event quite a few times over the years. I mean, even looking back to the early 2010s when he was playing, obviously, and actually ended up winning one year when it came to the FedEx Cup. But look at this, top 10 finish in 2019, 5th place finish in 2017, top 20 place finish last year, and he wasn't even playing all that well there in 2021. He loves this golf course. He loves PGA National. He loves TPC Sawgrass. These courses that all model relatively similarly. So not a surprise to see him in the player pool for this week. Alrighty, guys, that's all I've got for this week's core picks. Before you hop on out of here, make sure you go ahead and smash that like button, but also go ahead and comment down below who you've got winning this week. Now, for me, I'm not going to take the cop-out answer. Not going to say Scotty Sheffler. I'll be a little bit more unique about it. Go ahead with a Billy Horschel. Take a little bit of a long shot there in that 40 to 50 to 1 range. But Billy Ho with that course fit, just coming in off a few made cuts, has the course history here, the recent form metrics across the board with the shots gained. Go ahead and take Billy Ho. Be a little bit more daring about it this time around, but go ahead and let me know your pick down below too. And as per usual, going to have the regular slate of content for you. So value picks dropping a little bit later on this evening. We'll have fades and sleepers out sometime tomorrow. Our weekly DFS live stream will be Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure to stop on by for that. We'll have you completely covered. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I would highly recommend you go ahead and do so you don't miss any of those videos when they drop throughout the week. Best of luck with all of your lineups here. Thank you again for stopping by, supporting the content in the channel as always, and let's go ahead and get some bags of cash this week.